I hope we can see my screen, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, so this is where I was. So I was talking about, yes, my experience at the King's College London. So what I knew I needed to do at that point was for me to work extra hard in order to be able to get the results I want. There was no shortcut. It wasn't an option for me in that moment. Then, still on my expertise, I do work in public health, environmental risk perception. So in this case, I work with human participants. So we do surveys, focus group discussions, questionnaire studies, and then we also look at health, safety, and environmental issues in occupational settings. And in the last few years, I've forayed very seriously into science communication. So specifically in stakeholder engagement, in advocacy and risk communication. Now, in all of this, let me share my second experience. Can we hear me, please? I don't know if somebody could.
Yes, yes.
Oh, you can. Yes. Now, in this, the other opportunity I had. So at the end of the day, at the King's College, towards my last month, I was able to get some results, which is what I took away. So when you're talking about ethical issues in that context, I came away, or I left there with this potential collaborator I had, with a principle and a sense of hard work, a sense of, having conducted quality research and research that speaks to the results that I had in the lab and not something I concocted. Unfortunately, I have had to deal with, and I have heard of experiences where colleagues or students go abroad in such instances and try to manipulate data. Please, like I said, this can actually mar potential opportunities. And you know, one thing I learned about foreign researchers, it might look as if you got away with it the first time, but the problem is you might not get another opportunity another time. And you know one thing about research collaboration, when you are about to apply for another research, particularly collaborative research or a fund, most of the time you'll be required to provide a reference from the person you work with. If you have not conducted yourself ethically, it becomes a problem. And it's not just with researchers alone. It also goes with other people that you work with in projects. So like, for instance, in my foreign science communication, I work a lot with government agencies, regulators, practitioners. It's also, the principle remains the same. You are collaborating on a project with practitioners, with government regulators. And what's the aim? You are coming as a researcher to help to assess or identify a need that the regulators or the practitioners have, which you want to provide a solution for through rigorous. The principle, please, can you help to, okay, yeah. The principle of research integrity applies in such a collaboration as well. Nowadays, we talk about inclusion. For instance, at the point where you are developing that proposal, do you include such collaborators from the beginning? Do you inform them? Of course, we always have this issue of disclosure as well. So we will talk about it when we're talking about ethical issues or ethical practices in my last slide. When you're working with such people, particularly that you have never worked before, that you don't have evidence of collaboration with, then it might be nice for you to define from the very beginning, what is the aim and goal of this collaboration? What do we want to achieve out of this collaboration? What are going to be the roles of different parties in this collaboration? Particularly in the case where you're working cross-disciplinary or transdisciplinary. You're working with a researcher, and you are working with a regulator, and you're working with a practitioner, or somebody who is doing business. It has to be, or somebody in NGO. It has to be clearly stated what are the different roles, and whatever will come out of it, whether it's going to be a policy brief. When we talk about research collaborations, most of the time we talk about a scientific publication. If it's going to be a publication, what's going to come out of it? What will be the contributions? Even in terms of authorship, these are ethical issues that arise. Whose name will come first? How are we going to, arrange the name? What will be the roles of the different authors? If somebody collaborates or is part of the proposal at the beginning, but refuses to contribute substantially enough to be able to be attributed authorship in the paper, what is the rule? Will the person be delisted or not? Or the person will be acknowledged? Those kinds of things need to be discussed at the beginning. It might not be as detailed, so that particularly those who are not in the research space are not like, I don't understand what I'm getting into. But we are beginning to see, and like has been discussed by Dr. Nwaichi in our previous presentation, it's very important that this kind of things are made clear from the beginning. So everybody knows their role and what they're expected to do. So in these different areas that I've talked about, I conduct research on wastewater treatments. I've talked about fish embryo toxicity, ecological risk assessments, climate change, pollutant interactions, and environmental risk communication. And in doing this, I have done affiliations across a very wide network. And this is where I really want to spend time, because my topic is on globalization. Particularly for the young ones, I would like to encourage you that please, all of these networks and affiliations don't come all of a sudden. I had one of my students call me yesterday. We spoke for a long time, almost 30 minutes. And she said to me, Ma, I finished with a distinction, my first degree, MSc, I finished with 4 point something, and I don't have a job. And the job I just got is very meager and all of that. And I told her, what are the networks that you have established from the time you did your first degree up until when you did your master's degree? Ladies and gentlemen, in this highly globalized world, research collaborations are leveraged on networks and affiliations. For instance, my invitation to deliver this talk by Dr. Woshini is mostly because of the affiliations that I have with her through the African Academy of Sciences. We are both Nigerians. Though she works in the north, I work in the south, but we had never come across each other. We had never collaborated until we met as affiliates of the African Academy of Sciences. So when you are talking about research collaboration and globalization, ladies and gentlemen, you really I cannot overemphasize networks. I cannot overemphasize affiliations. And for the younger ones, I want to encourage you, please start from your research institution. And that's why you have the University of Lagos. If you take time and go to my collaborations, you will see that a lot of the collaborations I have and publications I have started from researchers within my departments, even starting from my unit. And how did I know about that? I also learned from mentors, from my supervisors. What did I do? Like I said at the beginning, when you are going into research, it's very important that you define the principles and the goals that you have. If your research, particularly when you start from the postgraduate stage, is that you really want to build a career in academia, right? You want to follow or pursue this line of research, or you want to go into consultancy, or you want to work for government, you need to define what type of affiliations and networks do you need to leverage in order to become an expert. In the field that you have for yourself. And then when you have defined those networks, you need to be strategic in working towards getting into those networks. You cannot get crashes. And so that's why I said it takes time. I've been in this business when I started prior to that, I have applied for grants. I had done professional societies. I had undergone trainings. I was still going through trainings until I had that first breakthrough. So it takes time. So like the student who called me yesterday, she was so discouraged. And I said to her, these things take time. And particularly now in this world of social media and get things quick, A lot of young people are anxious to get these things done within months. It doesn't happen that way. It takes time, because another thing that people are looking for, particularly when you are trying to build collaboration, is that people are studying you. If you have noticed, or if you have ever applied for research grants recently, you will see that they will tell you as part of your application, include your social media links. There's a reason why they're doing that. They want to study your profile. They want to know the kind of person that you are. They want to know whether you engage or you discuss or you practice, malpractices or, corrupt things, or you say things that will, overshadow or will have a negative impact on the research or the collaboration that you want to have with them. Remember that particularly a lot of people, particularly established researchers, is not only the research that they are concerned about now, because they are now established. They are now trying to protect their names. They are trying to protect the culture. They are trying to protect the university or the institution that they are affiliated with, which they have spent years and decades to build. I'm sure we would have heard of people who had publications that were ended up found out to be plagiarized or with falsified data, and such papers were retracted, and we hear of such persons who commit suicide. Even top researchers are published in Science and Nature. Why is this so? Because their reputation has suddenly been brought down by that either one singular paper or series of papers that have been retracted. Funders are no longer going to give them funds. So students will no longer likely want to be supervised by them. So the reputation is beyond just the publication that you'll no longer be able to put forward. It cuts across your entire life, even your family. So that's why at the beginning, the issue of ethics has to be considered very seriously. And universities now, even in Global South, including my university, are now expending a lot of time and energy, particularly in early career researchers, training them on ethical conduct of research, in research ethics. And not only at universities, there are also free trainings online that are available on research ethics and ethical conduct. And why is this so? Unfortunately, and Dr. Nwaichi, I think, mentioned this, across most universities in Nigeria and even in the African countries, we don't have specific courses integrated in our curriculum, even right from the undergraduates, on research conduct and ethical conduct of research. And why is this so? Unfortunately, it will be amazed you to know that even our professors, some of them were not particularly schooled in this area. They got to learn it as they went along for some of them. Some of them still don't know what we're talking about when we're talking about research ethics. And so for them, it's difficult, particularly those who don't publish in very big journals, because when you publish in very reputable journals, there is no way that you will not become accustomed. By the time you get one or two reviewers' feedback, and particularly maybe on your methods or on your results, you will understand some of these things and you will realize the need to go back and do more research. So start from your unit. Let me go back to what I was talking about on leveraging affiliations. Start from your unit. Start with your supervisor. I know some people are not so fortunate to have supervisors who are maybe research savvy or even overly interested in research. And sincerely, I also work in the Nigerian academia. You don't blame them. A lot of people, because of the low cost of money that they get as salary, as soon as they get enough papers to get promoted, they focus on looking for other opportunities or jobs that will bring in income for them. But like I said, if you have defined for yourself what your research goal is, what your career goal is, it doesn't matter the kind of supervisor that you have. You can identify other people who might not be your supervisors, who can actually mentor you in research. Nowadays, I see a lot of young people. I've seen one in Covenant University, I think one from University of Ibadan recently, publishing papers and with impact factors and H indexes that are higher even than professors. It means that such a person has defined what he or she wants, has been able to leverage on supervision and mentorship. I can bet you there's no one that can do research standing alone. I know in times back, they will say single author papers are much more higher in terms of get much more higher points for publication. Ladies and gentlemen, that doesn't work out there. There is really no research that you can conduct now that you can say you really did on your own and you didn't leverage on mentorship, you didn't leverage on supervision. It is very important. There is no one that is an island. Please, you need to ensure that you are teachable. If you, like I said, don't have a supervisor who is very skilled in that area, identify people. I have a lot of students who are not my direct research students who call me or come to me. And I'm also appealing to our senior colleagues who might be here or those who might listen to this recording later. Please make yourself available. It's a lot. It's sacrifice, I know. But as we know, for those of us in academia, it's part of our community service. If we really want to, I always talk about the Nigeria we want and the Africa we want. If we really want to achieve that, we cannot leave these young ones behind, because some of us are gradually going up there and we are going to retire, or we are going to get to a point where we will need young ones to continue this research. If they are not properly trained, if they are not properly schooled, if they are not exposed to the vicissitudes of research ethics and collaborations and globalizations, they will indeed be left behind, because their colleagues are moving forward. Their colleagues are doing innovative things in the research space, which they need to be able to do, but it needs to be underpinned by ethics. So let me go on leveraging on networks. So after going through my universities, I saw that I wanted to go beyond what researchers within my group were doing, because I wanted to be an international researcher, not what they call a local champion. So I began to look for which people are flying in this field. My field is not so popular, at least at the time I started. So I began to look for intentionally. Thank God, online, so I spent money being online. I began to identify people outside of my research institutions. And then I began to go for conferences. In fact, there is no year that I don't attend conferences in my area, both at local level and international level. And when I attend conferences, even though I'm one of those, when I go for international conferences, I will do shopping, I will do all those things that most Nigerians do. My first aim when I get to the conference is to look for people. Sincerely, my first aim when I go for a conference is not just to present my paper, although it's a must for me. I don't just attend the conference and just go there to look. I must ensure that I present a paper, right? So that's the first thing, because with doing that, you are also exposing yourself. You are making people know that you are a researcher in a particular area. And don't mind, particularly for young people, you might be intimidated that you are going for an international conference and you just want to present a paper that you did, maybe a qualitative research, something that you think is just basic and will not merit, talking international for. You need to gain confidence. That's another thing. Gain confidence, provide that. You can start with posters. So I started a lot with posters, not oral presentations. And then what I did is that I will get a list of people, particularly if it's an international conference, they will give you access sometimes, depending on the society you belong to the people that will be attending or people in different research areas. I will identify those in the specific areas that either I'm working in or I'm aiming to work in. Specifically at the time when I was completing my PhD research and going into postdoctoral research. Please, Dr. Wosheni, just tell me if I have 5 or 10 minutes left to my time so that I can wrap up. I might tend to talk much, right? So you identify those, and when I go there, they are the first persons I'm looking for. And when I go to them, where I start from is, I want to come to your lab. So do you have grants to fund me? No, I don't start from the point of what can you give to me. I start from the point of, you are in my area, you are in this area. I'm not so good in this area. Is there a way you can mentor me? Is there a way I can collaborate with you in this area? I'm willing to look for funds, maybe to come to your lab. Might you be able to provide a reference for me to come and learn? And like I said, most of the time they will not say yes immediately, particularly if we are from Nigeria, because that thing is there. So you have to be able to show yourself that this person is really interested in your research. It's not that the person is looking for a way to emigrate to that country and run away, right? So you can leverage professional societies, and we have several of them. On the flip side, we also have professional societies that are conferences, and even some societies that are not reputable. So how do you identify them? You need to leverage your mentorship, starting from your local institutions. Look for your professors who consistently attend conferences and are also in professional societies, and then they can advise you on which ones to join. And then you join them, and that's how you start. Apart from professional society, we also have academies. I just mentioned how myself, coincidentally, the three of us, Dr. Nwaichi, Dr. Wosheni, and myself, are part of the African Academy of Sciences. And sincerely, it's on that platform that I met these two brilliant people. And since I joined the AAS in 2019, I have collaborated with them amongst other people. I have even co-published papers with Dr. Nwaichi, just because of that network within the AAS. Of course, the AAS academics or Nigerian Young Academy are competitive think tanks to join. But like I said, I had a research goal. So you define yourself. You want to be among such competitive scholars across Nigeria, across Africa. Then you need to look at what are the criteria to join such an academy. And then you need to begin to position yourself to ensure you're able to join. And when you're able to join, I think I cannot overemphasize the benefits you get from the research collaboration, from the mentorship, from the exposure, from the training, from the facility. I mean, you want to apply for a grant that is African-wide. You don't need to stress much because you have a network that you can leverage upon. And because it's a scholarly network, when you post something, people don't need to verify you because they know that before you even got in, you were already verified. So that's for academies. And then for those of us like me who work with stakeholders outside of academia, that underpinning thing of trust is there. So these are some of the environmental agencies I work with. Again, they also have the issue of,
Dr.
yes.
Sogbanmu, 5 minutes
I have
more.
5 minutes. Okay, thank you.
Yes, that's fine.
Yes. So these people have, so this is my penultimate slide. These people also have the issue of trust. So when you are coming to a government agency and you say you want to do research in this area, most of the time they also want, what can we gain, right? What do we gain from you? It's very important for you to be clear-cut about that. And one of the things I've learned with these people, when you work with them on a project and they see that you are playing, you are true to your word, you are true to what you have defined that you are going to achieve, and you are going to put them in, it's very easy for you to sustain such a collaboration and relationship. And particularly now for maybe the senior ones who apply for big grants, you will see that those big grants now in collaborative research is beyond just saying you want to collaborate with a researcher in another university or in another country or another country. They are now requiring you to do what we call cross-disciplinary and transdisciplinary research. So you need to bring other stakeholders, right? Because if you don't bring them in, you don't have research uptake, what we call research uptake. So after your research is done, who is going to take up the results of your research and put it into practice to generate the impact that you want? So you have to put government people there. You have to put NGOs there, but they don't come suddenly. You can't just approach them and say, I want to collaborate with you, and then they will just give you a letter of support. It doesn't work that way. You have to establish thoughts. You have to also show that you have conducted research in an ethical manner. So on this last slide, within this next few minutes, what are some of these ethical practices, apart from the ones that I've mentioned? I can overemphasize training and capacity assessments. Training is continued and is for life. In fact, I'm always doing one training or the other. I'm not saying anything that comes your way, just do it. It has to be targeted. It has to be goal-oriented. Like I said, you have to define what you want to achieve and then what are the things you require to achieve it. So continuously expose yourself to training and capacity building. You also need to leverage on research grants. Don't mind that you have never gotten one, so you're afraid that I might not get one. Start with $500. Start with 20,000. Start with 1 million, whichever small one. And from the small research grants that you get, you leverage big one. And before you get one, sometimes you might need to collaborate with a senior colleague. Don't bother, even if you collaborate with that senior colleague and the senior colleague sort of cheats you, don't worry about it. Just ensure that when you get that grant, The output from that research is published and you have it in your portfolio. Next time, what you do with that in collaboration is that when you collaborate with somebody and the other party is not true, then you know the kind of person you will not collaborate with again. So you have learned one lesson and you move on. Co-design, co-authorship, local leadership. Now, when we're talking about research collaboration in a global world, you find a lot of times that the global South people just say, I just want to have my name in that team. It's not clear-cut what you are leading. It's not clear-cut which part of the study you are taking. You need to begin to take ownership, contribute to the discussion, particularly when you are getting to post-PhD and you're trying to develop your own independent research program. You need to be able to showcase yourself that you can do something and actually put yourself forward as leading a certain aspect. Developing memoranda of understanding is also very good. I have two that I have facilitated through my international collaborations in Canada with my institution. And we have a very big multi-million dollar project now that we're doing through such collaboration. But like I said, it did not start yesterday. I went for that fellowship in 2018, and for 4 years, I've been working on different things with them before we arrived to where we are. So on this note, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that from these practical experiences of mine, that you've been able to get a few tips that can help you in developing your own research ideas, in developing your own research thoughts, patterns, goals, principles, rules, and guidelines, and also to leverage on the networks that you probably already have or that you would establish in order to ensure that your research is ethical and that you actually increase the globalization and the global global visibility of you yourself as a researcher and also of your research. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Dr. Temitope Sogbanmu. I guess I'll be speaking everybody's mind too, that we've had enriching presentations today. And thank you once again, our presenters. So we'll be moving on to our question and answer period. And we have around we have 30 minutes or less than, let me say 25 minutes for our question and answer. I'm sure which are we have all noted down. So I've written the modality for it. You can type in the chat box or we can show it by click on the raise hand, the symbol there. So I don't know if anybody has any question and answer now. Any question now for our presenters, but we have sent some in the chat box already, which I'll be reading. Please, if there's anyone, Dr. Amara or Dr. Shumore, please help me to, please notify me. Okay, there's a question here that goes like this. How, to both authors, that is to Dr. Nwaichi and Dr. Sogbanmu, how can ethics and ethical practices be embedded and promoted at the institutional level in Nigerian higher education institutions? That's from Dr. Shumore. So, how can ethics and ethical practices be embedded and promoted at the institutional level in Nigeria, in Nigerian higher education institutions? So whoever wants to go first, please, you are welcome to do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question. How can ethical practices be embedded in the Nigerian institution? We start with awareness. That's what we're doing today, awareness raising. So you and I have to make up our mind, a decision that is objective to practice ethically as researchers. If we do, it's going to benefit us a lot, as Dr. Temitope Sogbanmu has outlined in her presentation. We have a lot of rewards. We reap quite a lot by practicing ethically. If we do, and our colleagues do, and we talk about it, even in our researches, when the people say it doesn't matter, you tell them it matters a lot. When we say responsible researching, doing no harm, when you do not wear your lab coats, when you do not wear your gloves, when you do not turn on the fume cupboard, all of these are unethical practices in research. It's not only about stealing research misconduct that we talk about when we're talking about ethics. So when you insist those who will work with you in your team wear the lab coats or wear the gloves or whatever practices that are in sync with your specific field, you are developing ethics and its practice in your institution. You start from you and your research team. You go to your team of supervisees and collaborators. And then people ask you, why can't you do this? Oh, it's for 5 minutes. Why must I wear this? You take your time to explain why they have to do it. And they watch you do it consciously. And that's going to have more ripple effect than the Jojo. Yes, you need to know the knowledge for join, but you need to do more and explain to people more, be patient while explaining. And if you have opportunity to engage with the university, as I sit at the exchange and linkage seat at my university, I continue to interface with students who want to go into collaboration and colleagues who are also talking about collaboration with external bodies to my university. So I talk about ethics in the way, the manner, even with draft MOUs. So ethics is quite broad, like we've talked about the rightness and wrongness. There are principles, the morals of doing research. So let's start with ourselves, colleagues, and then engaging institutions. It may not be easy. Many people may not appreciate the value of ethics, but when it works for you and the people around you, I think the campaign can grow stronger. That's what I can tell you.
Thank you. Dr. Sogbanmu, do you have any
Yes,
contribution?
thank you. Yes, definitely. How can institutions help? Institutions can actually create. So I know that across Nigerian universities now, we have one at my institution. I believe that Uniport has, and several really, particularly federal government institutions. They have what we call research management offices, or it could be research and innovation office, depending on what the institution calls it. And really, that's part of the mandate of that office. You know, because why such offices are set up is to facilitate grantsmanship, right, across faculty members in the university, to facilitate collaboration with other researchers in other clients. One of the things that they need to do in order to improve that is to actually train faculty members on ethical conduct of research. I mean, you cannot overemphasize that. I'm thankful to my institutions because my institutions have facilitated many of such for me, which I have attended, right? And that has actually helped in the grantsmanship that I have with my research and in the collaborations and MOUs that I've facilitated for my institution. So the institution has to expend time into doing this. And I always tell people, it's not always about there's no money to do it. It's more about the will to do it, right? If you identify the will to do it and identify people who can do it, because it's also not about just putting somebody there who doesn't have any idea about what to do. You need to identify people who have had that training maybe elsewhere and who are able to facilitate this and let them start something. You can start with some guidelines or some principles, or they can even leverage on collaborations with other universities or other academics or other institutions outside to train. For instance, my university has done collaborative training with Stellenbosch University, for instance, to do training, for instance, on doctoral research supervision. So institutions can actually do that because, like I said, no researcher or institution really is a cynosure of knowledge. We all need to leverage collaborations across board, particularly in this global village. Even people on the global north are leveraging collaborations with people in the global south because there are some contexts that they cannot understand in the global north when they are trying to do research. And because research is global, it has to be all inclusive. So that's something institutions need to do. And then apart from institutions, as a researcher, there are a lot of online courses. I mean, I cannot, in this global village, is when you get tired of learning, really. There are a lot of free online courses and learning platforms that you can actually leverage on to learn these things. For instance, within my research group, it is compulsory as a master's or undergraduate student. You must take a plagiarism test course. And that course is not done in my institution. That course is done by the University of Bloomberg or Bloomington. I can't remember the university. I did that course some 6 years ago, when I started learning about plagiarism. And it was just a one-day full training course. After you do that course, you write an exam. When you pass it, you get a certificate about how to identify plagiarism. And it's free. They provide that free. That course is provided at an institution in the USA, but they allow people from everywhere to take it. So my students, it's compulsory for you to take it. And that really reduces a lot. What other things can institutions do? There is what we call Turnitin and several plagiarism software. Some of them are, expensive. So like Turnitin, institutions can actually expend money in that. What would that do? Because part of research ethics and ethical conduct, some of which Dr. Nwaichi mentioned, is the issue of plagiarism. If you as a researcher, for instance, cannot write up a paper that is free from plagiarism, it might not even be that it's intentional. That's another thing when I teach plagiarism courses. Some plagiarism are actually not intentional. It's just that this person doesn't know that it is plagiarism. He doesn't know that if I take a method from a paper that I published from my own work and I don't cite myself, that is self-plagiarism. It might just be that person doesn't know, because there's no course that teaches that at our universities. So such persons need to get the training. They also need to get tools to help them to identify it. Thankfully, in my institutions, they got that. So across our thesis, I put some faculty members don't do it. As soon as I put your work in Turnitin, if it's more than 30% or more than 20%, I send it back to you. And it gives you the details of the areas where you plagiarize. So in that way, the students, even the faculty members, even me, when I write a manuscript to submit, before I submit to the paper, to the journal, I put it in a plagiarism software, because some of us might not know. A lot of these journals, particularly the reputable ones, as soon as you submit your manuscript, they put it in Authenticate, the plagiarism software. As soon as the plagiarism level is higher than a number, that's when you get Dex rejection. Some of them are nice. They tell you that the reason why you are rejected is because of plagiarism. Some of them are not so nice. They just say it's plagiarized. So you will not know what the problem was, and you continue in that circle. So, I don't want to spend too much time because of other questions, but these are some of the things that institutions can do and individual researchers can do to help themselves in being able to do ethical research that follows ethical principles. Thank you.
Yeah, there's another question here that says, what is a positive result and negative result, by Ismail Ahmed? When you say a negative result has been obtained, it means that the presence of the substance or the condition for which you started the research was not found, or was found in normal amount. So there's a negative result and there's positive result, and both are valid. And some other person asked, can we publish negative result? Yes, you can. So you can help researchers in the area not to waste their resources in going through the same thing. But we may need a follow-up investigation to confirm that that negative result is actually valid when we have such. Before I know whether my colleague would have something else to say there, I see another one asking how you can join the African Academy of Science. It's an academy, so you don't just stroll in academies. Yeah, so there has to be a call that you respond to. So watch out for the call. There was a call from the African Academy of Science for affiliates, and it's been delayed for some time. Maybe because of the COVID, the time we have now, it's very special. A lot of things are delayed. Yeah, so you apply to be an affiliate if you're relatively an academic that is quite young. As you progress into more experience stage, you try to become a fellow. That means your profile has become so loaded that you can become fellow. So you can become an affiliate or a fellow. So these are the two membership types. Although in each category, like the fellow, you have honorary fellow and all of that. But basically you have the fellow and the affiliate, and they are doing different kinds of things and engaging these are wonderful researchers to use their brain. Dr. Temitope talked about the think tanks. They try to harvest a lot that are in them for the good of the continent. And even that trickles into the globe. And while they are also interrelating, like I'm relating with my wonderful Temi and other people. So we are interrelating and you are cross-relating and you are giving out a lot. And you also advising the academy on how to get better, harness the potentials that are bound in the continent, because we believe strongly that it's only Africa that can change Africa.
Okay, Dr. Oshene, I don't know if we're to just respond to questions in the chat or you will facilitate the questions. So that's why
Yeah.
If you, well, I think I'll facilitate it. So I think what we should also do is that if we have, let's go by 2 to 3 questions before you give a general response. I think that would also help. And okay, there's still one here. If you may want to contribute to the previous ones, but let me also read this. How can we shift the paradigm on publish or perish that drive researchers to get involved in unethical practices? This is to both of you. Can you see there is in the chat, how we can shift the paradigm on publish or perish that drive researchers to get involved in unethical practices?
okay. If I may take it, and I would like to contribute in addition to what Dr. Nwaichi mentioned about how to join the AAS. Like she has mentioned, the AAS, and like I said in my presentation, it's a very it's an academy, so it's not a professional society, just like the Nigerian Academy of Nigerian Young Academy. It's not a professional society. So there are academies that are targeted at early career researchers, young scholars, usually less than 45 for females and less than 40 for males. And you have to have demonstrated rigorous research, right, in your area in terms of publication, in terms of grants, in terms of visibility, in terms of attendance of conferences, in terms of collaborative research and things like that. And like I said, these things don't start in one day. For some people, they were lucky they got in at their first application. I didn't get into any of these academics in my first. For AAS, for instance, I got in, I think, at my second or third attempt. For NYA, I got in, I think, at my fourth attempt. I'm not saying that that has to be the case. But what happened is that, remember that I had a research goal, that I didn't want to be a local champion. And I knew that these academics were scholars that were competing with international scholars at the international level, even though they were based in Nigeria or based in Africa. So when I applied the first time and I saw I was not selected, I began to look at the profile of those that were already selected. And I knew what I needed to do. And for some of them, I approached them to mentor me. For some of them, I actually studied them from afar, studied their profile, look at the kind of research that they were doing, look at, how original in terms of contribution, visibility. And then I began to tutor myself in that area. So I was intentional and I was strategic. Like I said, you don't just apply for everything or attend all the courses or do everything. So you need to be as strategic. So in improving my research, I knew the kind of skills I needed to get, and I looked for people or labs where I could get them. In terms of research publications, I spent more time learning how to write and then how to publish in reputable journals. And so most of my papers, I'm the corresponding author or the first author, because I will ensure that before my name is on that paper, I have done due diligence, because I am aiming for quality and not necessarily quantity, right? And so a lot of these academies, even though quantity is good, they are actually looking at quality. All of us, the three of us here, we review applications for members into these academies. Most of the time, part of the criteria we use is not so much about quantity, but it's about the quality of the work that you are doing, because it's that quality that will bring about citations and high impact and then research grants and all of that. So that's very important for you to know in applying to join these academies. And when the call for application comes out, they are usually open. Within this, your network, we can always send to you when that call opens. For the issue on publish or perish, is unfortunately, it's not a Nigerian thing. It's the same in academia worldwide. For you to get promoted, you have to publish. If you don't get published, you basically perish, meaning that you don't get promoted and you can be in one position for a long time. So it means that you need to get published. And so it's this call to publish that makes people get into predatory publishing, doing low quality work, going for predatory conferences, looking for predatory publishers. That will not work. For some people, it appeared that it worked in the short term. But as you will notice, even in Nigerian universities now, you cannot really put forward predatory papers for promotion anymore. It was in time past. In this global village now, you cannot. So if your aim is just for you to get promoted, then that time has gone where you can just publish in one journal. Within 1 month, you have gotten acceptance paper. It's already published, and then you can put it up there. That no longer happens again. In fact, I'm aware that they are even trying to migrate now to using H-index and Google Scholar citations. And how would that be? You cannot get your work really much cited if you don't publish impactful original research, because research is peer-reviewed. And when it undergoes peer review, except you publish in a very low quality journal where they hardly peer review or predatory publishers or researchers review them, it's going to go through rigorous review. And please don't be discouraged. I know a lot of things that discourage people. And I must say, I almost fell prey in my younger years, is that you send out 3 papers and within that same month, you get rejected for the 3 papers. And you're wondering, how am I going to make a headway? Please always pay attention to the reviewer's comments. Some journals are very wonderful. They will not just reject without telling you why they rejected. They will provide you comments from the reviewers or from the editor. Please make use of the comments. Sometimes the comments might have to do with your methodology. You might need to actually go back to the lab. You might need to work on the way you write. It takes work. There is no gainsaying about it. You just have to work on it. But I can tell you categorically that the more you work at it, because writing and publishing is an art, the more you get better at it. And as you get better, and please get involved in peer review. And I'm talking to maybe those that are postdocs and all of that. If you are invited to peer review, particularly in an international journal, please do it. It takes a lot. I have done that in recent years, and it has helped to improve my writing. So please get involved. And I will leave the floor for Dr. Eucharia to also address that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that insight. You see, publish or perish is a syndrome that's been as old as we can imagine it. Coolidge in 1932 coined this word, publish or perish. So it's not a Nigerian thing, like she said, it's global. And it has come before we became researchers. It's been there. And it's going nowhere because the granting agencies are going to ask you how many publications do you have. Some will say 10 most recent relevant publications. Some will say a list of publications as an attachment, different kinds of things. So nobody ignores publications. So we continue to publish. But ethics is the way to go. That's how we can run away from falling prey to the misconduct that is associated with publish or perish. Because we want to get out the data. We want to increase money. We want to get our institutions known and more reputable, because the more we publish, the collaborations and the affiliations also get credit for it. That's why our institutions on our neck to publish, because they will also want to be cited and rated. They want to grow in reputation. So let's run to ethics. That's the only way. While publishing, I am not thinking that I'll perish without publishing, but I really need to publish to be alive, okay, as a researcher. So you need to publish, like Temi said, that she spends time to see that what is going out there with her name has backings, she has read it. So let's try our best to grow the capacity of our researchers. If we continue to write for them, they don't grow. So now I put out my PhD students to write, and send to me. And I have quite a number of them that can write, and maybe I add nothing. I read it and it's okay, or one line, I just tell them, okay, look at this sentence and recast it without me doing the recasting. So both of us are learning together. It's a process, like she said, an art that never has an expiry date. So we continue to learn until we die. I share with my mentees that I never got a formal training before I started publishing good journals. But now I have gone through a lot of training on science communication in different countries. But before I went for those training, I had started publishing in reputable databases. So I learned by reading these comments that Dr. Temi is talking about. Do not throw away the comments. When they reject, most time the first response is to be angry. We can't be angry because this is the only way we can grow. So maybe the first time, push it aside, come back to it, and look at first reviewer's comment. She has said this, it makes no sense, no knowledge addition. Methodology is outdated. Look at your methodology. When was it published? Be very sincere. Take a third eye, like you're not the owner. You may agree with that. If you don't agree, you can write a rebuttal. I have written a rebuttal before and got my paper accepted. Yes, when you go through it patiently and you find that you strongly disagree with the reviewer's position, you can write a rebuttal to the journal, stating your facts without insulting anybody, appreciating the effort, the time and resources spent by the reviewers to contribute to your paper, but you want to differ on their position on XYZ because you provide those. They can reconsider and your paper will get accepted. Yeah, you can do that. But what I'm saying in all is spend time with these comments. They help you to grow and send your papers. Yeah, sometimes you're not cited. It doesn't mean that your work is not good. I took time to look at my citation again today. I found out that only 625 people have cited me. Some persons may say it's great, but I think it can be better. So, but I know that many people have used my work without citing me. Some persons, especially in our climb, who are envious of your work may not cite you. They read your work discreetly, use it and not cite. It's okay. What is important that you are consistently and intentionally making effort and contributing to the society. That is what is most important. You gotta be cited, yes, but if you're not cited, it's okay. Be consistent and honesty in turning out research data that will help to change the world around you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. We have Gabba Ibrahim online. He's been patiently waiting. Please, do we have any other person so that we can take all the questions at once within the next 6 to 8 minutes so that we can round up? Okay, so if there's none, Gabba Ibrahim, please go ahead. Thank you. Unmute yourself. Please unmute. You are muted.
Okay. Yeah. Good afternoon, discriminators and participants. I just have a question to ask. I want to know, how will I remain motivated? Because whenever I start to write a paper or to undergo a research, I will work for like the entire 2-3 months before. I want the presenters to advise me on how to remain motivated whenever I started to carry out a research, whenever I intended to write a paper, so that as soon as I started writing or undergoing a research, I should maintain the same. Hello. Hello.
We can
hear
hear
you.
Yeah. Yeah, as I said.
Okay, I think he has network issue there. I've
Thank
got
you
the
so much for the
question.
presentation on how will I remain. I started All right. That's just the question.
Okay, so how can Ibrahim remain motivated as a researcher on particular research or
Yes.
while writing paper? The last time I did writing course for my community, I was telling them there are many papers I started writing in my computer.
Yes.
Some of them are as old as 8 years and they are inconclusive, like the Nigerian politicians would say, and they may never be completed again in life.
Yes.
It just dead ended. Then there are many that, I get invited to contribute a chapter. And I remember that I started something. So that invitation now spurs me to go back to it and get to the end. Yeah, so some other times applications I do, maybe in the policy space, and they ask me papers in relevant places. And I don't have paper in that space. So it makes me to chart a new path that I must publish in policy or something. So you have to remain motivated by doing. As a researcher, you must apply for grants. How many grants have you applied for this year? If your answer is 0, I'm sorry that you have not done well. You have 6 months now. You must consciously apply for not less than 3 grants this year. You must, even if you don't get any. Like this year, I've got 2 grants already. In these 6 months, I've got 2 grants. I have 2 grants now. So if you don't get any, I have one with my student and one alone. So if you don't get any in a year, it can be discouraging. But for the fact that you put out yourself to be examined, to be chosen, and you're not chosen, also calls for some fulfillment. So you must apply for research grant. You must apply for conference sponsorship. You must apply to go for a workshop. You must apply to go for a scientific meeting. You must apply to come make your presentation, because you can't have that data and you're not discussing the data with anybody, people in your field who can make contributions or who can celebrate you. Because if we're celebrated, we get more motivated. You're looking for motivation. So you go there, present paper, and they clap for you. That is motivation. I've done well. So you want to have new sets of data so you can get on the plane to go make presentation, or even drive down or catch a taxi, depending on the location of that scientific meeting. So always try to apply for something, because success attracts more motivation, and rub minds with colleagues. So at those times when you fail, because now I've announced that I've got 2 grants today, some of you will say, oh, that's good, she always gets it. Not, I have lost like 12. You see, I lost like 12, I gained 2, but the 2 will sound louder than the 12 I have failed in. So keep pushing there. And as you network with colleagues, when Temi talks to me and says, oh, I have the deadline, I couldn't make it, I said, you are even better. I tried even to start, I couldn't submit. So she thinks that she's better. She submitted, she didn't get it. I didn't submit. So network with people of like mind. What are the objectives? Like she said, she has objectives. Set your objectives and find those who have similar destination as you. So when you talk to yourselves, you encourage yourselves, and when you succeed, you also succeed. And another thing I want to say as researchers, carry your family along. Whether you marry, single, your brothers and sisters, your friends, your husbands, your wife, your children, tell them what you're doing. Oh, I don't need any disturbance, I'm making an application. Tell them. Then someday you say, hey, I got it. And they know that what you were doing is worth it after all. So sometimes they support you. They say you have not gone in silo, maybe to come make application. We've not had you to say, don't disturb us for some time. So they're telling you that you're becoming lazy, you're doing nothing. So get people around you to know what you're doing, and all of this, I think, can help you stay motivated in writing papers and in research.
Okay, let me just, Dr. Nwaichi has really said a lot of the things I could have said, but I'll just add to it that it's very important that, I mean, birds of the same feather flock together. If you have friends or are in a research team or a group where people are just lazing about, they're not doing anything and all that, there will really be no motivation. Let me tell you practical things that I do. Apart from the people I collaborate with and the networks I'm in, there's some specific top flying researchers that I follow on Google Scholar, as in if you're on Google Scholar at all, and I hope some of us know that, I click on the follow page. And what I do is that I say, alert me when this person, publishes a new paper. And just like Dr. Nwaichi, I have several papers. I have about 20-something manuscripts at different stages of writing, in a lot of them with my students. Sometime when after a while, I've not heard from students, I write to students and say, what's up? What's remaining? Or maybe there's a part of the methods that you've not done. So it's at different stages of writing. So someday I will get to the final stage, but I also try to motivate myself, because it's very easy for you as a researcher to feel that, even though I have like 10 different things that I'm doing, I've not set out anyone. Ensure that even though it's 10, that it's progressing. And for some people, they might not be able to multitask like that. I can write 4 papers at the same time at different stages. Some people need to focus on writing one, finish one, send it out. You need to identify. So for instance, it takes time. You need to identify your own style. So if you have identified your own style, if you are the person that can write, and most of we women sometimes can do it because we multitask as parents, as mothers and all that. But if you are such a person, have colleagues who must just focus on one thing first, finish writing before they can do other things. If that's your way, then focus on it. And for you to be focused, it might mean that you need to take an hiatus. You need to maybe take a break. You need to go to some place, maybe a library, or you need to go on a vacation or a weekend, whatever, for you to be able to focus and write. Please do it. If I can afford it. If you can't afford it, lock yourself up in the office and do it, right? Motivate yourself. So for instance, now, when I get a paper, sometimes I can get from one of my top flying mentors that I follow, I can get an alert that this person just published 4 papers at the same time. Immediately I see that, I remember the other papers I'm writing and I start working again. So that gives me some sort of momentum. And I check my Scholar page every day. Always, I have them bookmarked. Always have something relating to research always before you when you open your computer. So that when you do that, you are always motivated to do the next thing in that research. And a lot of things that motivate us sometimes and demotivate you sometimes is maybe you get a rejection, or you're in the lab, you get a negative result. You can take a break and after a while come back. Because you know what? It's not everybody that is lazing about. People are working, and these are the people you're going to compete with when you are doing research grants. They will not say because you work in Nigeria, then they will not consider it. There's nothing like that again. Before they used to consider that. Now everybody is competing on the same field. So look for people who are top flying like that. It's those kind of people that can motivate you. I have someone who works in Republic of Benin. The guy is flying like crazy. And I'm like, if this person is in Togo here and is doing so well, then what's my whatever here in Nigeria that I'm not doing so much? But at the same time, please don't overburden yourself. Particularly for those of us that might be women, or you have responsibilities, and we don't get paid so much and you have to combine. Don't overburden yourself. Do as much as you can and take a break. Go on vacations. I learned that a lot from Dr. Eucharia. When we travel for conferences or for meetings, we enjoy ourselves and we act like we are not researchers. We go for outings, we dance and all that. But all of us know that when we get back to our rooms, we might not sleep, we might spend time writing. But when we go out for those outings, we actually enjoy ourselves. Please, relaxing is part of your development as a researcher. You don't have to stay in the lab 24/7. You don't have to stay on your computer 24/7. You actually get fatigued. So that's very important for you to do. And please look good and all that. I think those things will help you. And celebrate yourself. In the group that I work with in Canada, they're a top flying group. They publish in Nature and Science. I was fortunate in the 6 weeks I was with them, they had one paper published in Science. They bought champagne and they threw a party just over one paper because it was published in Science. And I took that away and I said to myself, even though I'm not publishing in Science yet, if I get published in one Elsevier that maybe like I have a 9-point-something impact factor paper, I should actually celebrate it because it's a big deal. And so that's an encouragement for me. It's an encouragement for my team as well. And for those of us that are senior colleagues, celebrate your students when they publish a paper. particularly when they're the first author or the most contributing author. I have a website for myself, and under my website, I have a research group news page. When my students publish a paper, I celebrate them there. And I notice that a lot of them get excited, when I say, and I have a research group on WhatsApp. I posted there, this person, so said, has just published a paper. Those who have not published their manuscript start grappling, and then if I reach out and say, ma'am, I've not done my own and all of that, I also like to publish my own. So it motivates other people, and it also motivates me as well. So those are some of the things that you can do. It takes time. Know what's your strong point, and please keep motivated. Very important.
Thank you so much for all your various comments and contributions. We thank all the participants. The questions and answer period we'll be rounding up now. We are above and we have gone beyond the time, but it has been an enriching and excellent time that we've had together. And to round up everything, we'll invite Dr. Onyeka Shomorin, who will be closing for us. And then from there, we wish everybody a wonderful weekend. And once again, thank you, presenters, for the invitation and for accepting our invitation, and as well as blessing us with this enriching and excellent talk. We have learned so much. Dr. Inka.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Moji. Good afternoon. It's now afternoon to everyone. I want to start by thanking very much our speakers, Dr. Nwaichi and Dr. Sogbanmu. Apologies, my internet just dipped. So thank you very much for the discussions you've had with us today, and thank you very much for the motivation. I think this is the most attended masterclass we've had so far. So I want to thank the Dr. Moji Osheni, especially for the new drive she's brought into the masterclasses, as well as the audience for attending. So thank you so very much. I hope we can continue the conversations. I would want to imagine that the speakers would be happy to, network and interact with the audience. Should you have things to ask them afterwards, check them out on their profiles online, ResearchGate, LinkedIn, Twitter, whichever platform you can reach them on. So thank you very much. And that's all from me.
Just a brief announcement. We'll host the recording of this presentation on our NAM's website and as well as on YouTube. All right. So bye-bye, everybody. Thank you. Bye.